Good afternoon. See some familiar faces. My name's Hal Hutchinson. Give you a little bit of background. I know we set up the PowerPoint there. My whole background is law enforcement. I was 37 years in law enforcement. Started here in New Orleans in the mid-'80s, and then went to state police, and I was assigned to Lafayette. While I was in Lafayette, I was there 29 years. Started off in uniform patrol, spent a little time there, then I went in and worked some with the narcotics unit, and then eventually got into detective unit. And part of the detective unit was we branched off and we had it was called Crimes Against Children unit. And while we were there, we investigated sexually based crimes that were against children. Most of the crimes that we investigated, children were under 12 years old. We did the human trafficking. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. What we did there was a lot of, we called it at the time child pornography, but now it's, oh, I'm sorry. At the time it was child pornography. Now we try to call it child sexual abuse material because that's actually what it is. Just to give you an idea, in Lafayette, when we first started, we were focused a lot on the child pornography, and we were getting about 500 downloads a month just in Lafayette. So from there, we started branching off to whenever we would catch these people with the child pornography, we would ultimately find victims, the child victims that are there. Let me get this started real quick. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is my contact information. Oh, yeah, I don't know how to do that. Okay. All right, thank you. This is my contact information. I know some people talk about, I'm one of those rare people, I have zero social media at all, but this is our contact information, and this is where I work out of. We're based out of Washington, D.C., or actually Alexandria, Virginia. We have, part of what we were founded, as I said, by John Walsh in 1984. His son Adam was taken and ultimately found had been murdered. And what he found out was police really weren't talking to each other, and there was no central place for police to go to. So he founded this organization, and that's kind of what we do. We are the clearinghouse for all child sexual abuse material, all the videos, all of the pictures that are taken, that are traded. Whenever law enforcement seizes this information, it's all forwarded to Ncmec. And when you say Ncmec, that's what I mean by National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And there's people that are there, and they go through it and they try to identify as many children as possible, and they try to link the connection together. And a lot of that works out really, really well for the law enforcement, because whenever you find one violator, you'll find a lot of different victims. We're congressionally funded, but we're a nonprofit, non-government agency. At Ncmec, we have 3 different goals, and it's to find missing children. If you've seen Amber Alerts, if you've seen the pictures that are out there, you'll see Ncmec has a lot to do with the poster and the distribution of that. And I'm going to go over a lot of the different companies that we have contracts with that help us on that. We also help reduce child victimization, and I'm going to go over a good bit of that a little bit later on. I'm just kind of giving you a preview. And there's some things that Ncmec has out there for kids that are vitally important that they can take and help themselves from being victimized. At Ncmec, we have partners there. We partner with Homeland Security, Postal Inspector, FBI, Secret Service, Department of Defense. We also have, with Homeland Security, if there's an international kidnapping, Ncmec will help bring the child back back to the U.S. So a lot of times there's the international parental kidnapping, and Ncmec will help that out. We have two call centers. One of them is in D.C. or Alexandria. The other one is in Florida. We get about 350 calls a day. Ncmec is free for the public. It's free for law enforcement. It's free for social workers or counselors. And we even have legal counsel that are there to help prosecutors that aren't familiar with these type cases, to help guide them through different cases like child pornography. I keep saying child pornography, child sexual abuse material. A lot of times if there's regretfully child homicides, we have specialists that are to work with law enforcement and prosecutors that are for no body. If there's no body, then a lot of places say there's no crime. We have legal people there that will help prosecutors walk through that process. We've received about a little over 5 million calls since 1984. What you'll see here, this is most of our calls that we get. A lot of them are endangered runaways. And if you know, well, I'm going to go over that in a minute, but a lot of the endangered runaways we get aren't really the runaways. A lot of them are going to be special needs kids and kids with autism. And if you do know a kid with autism or even a young adult, if you go to the Ncmec website, there is an entire packet there that'll walk you through how to better help law enforcement or first responders if the child winds up missing. There's some really key important things on there that help the police. And one of them I wish we would have known when we responded to it was what sets the kids off, the autistic kids, and what are some de-escalation techniques that the kids specifically know. My middle daughter is a counselor with autistic kids, and one of the first things that she told me they learn is how to de-escalate autistic kids. And it would help tremendously to have that packet ready for when the police show up to say, hey, don't do this, you can do this, to kind of talk them down. So there's little things like that that really help. We categorize what we do into different, sorry about that. There's different categories that we have: endangered species, endangered, runaways, special needs kids, abductions, family and non-family. So once those are categorized, we kind of can break down what needs they're going to need. These are the different resources that we have for missing child cases. We're there 24/7. When someone calls into our call center, we have linguists there, or up to 180 different languages that we can have translated. So no matter pretty much where they're at or where the kid is from, we have someone that can communicate with them or the family to help them out. The other thing that they'll do whenever they call into the call center, that case will be forwarded to a case manager. That case manager, depending on what the circumstances are with that child, they can coordinate with law enforcement. There's also part of what I'm on is Team Adam, which is named after Adam, John Walsh's son. And we're all retirees. We work on a part-time basis. And if there's an Amber Alert or if there are things of that, an abduction, then if the law enforcement that's handling it wants us to come out, then they'll contact us and we'll come out free of charge on them and for them. And once we're there, we can coordinate with other Team Adam people to kind of bring everybody together and let them see what's going on. Excuse me. Some of the other things that we also have too that the coordinator can do if there's a child abduction is we have family members that have gone through this before, and once the police department clears the family as being involved in it, Ncmec can send in family members that have gone through the exact same thing to sit down and counsel with them and let them know the process, let them know what's going to go on, So there are people that have been there and done that, and they're volunteering their time to come and help out other family members. So that seems to help out quite a bit. We also have a lot of analytical things that we do. Whenever a child goes missing or we get a request from law enforcement, what we'll do is we'll do all the background for them, all the social media searches, all the public record searches. We have ties in with most of the different states to where it'll read the license plate readers. It'll help take a lot of the busy work off of the law enforcement agency where they can go in and do kind of focus on the hot topics that are helping that case go through. If you've seen these pictures, it's been updated not long ago where we've got the QR code now. Also at Ncmec, there's artists that are there that do age progression pictures. We solve a lot of cases with this, or say they do. Ncmec solves a lot of missing kid cases like this. Sometimes if they come up where they've been missing for 30 years, they actually see the age progression pictures and they're calling Ncmec saying, hey, I think that's me. And it's amazing how many people don't realize what happened to them, and they realize that they were abducted at a small age. It happens all the time up there. And this is one of the things that they do really, really well is the age progression. We have contacts with a lot of the different Walmart, all the truck stops, all the Walmarts, all the big retail stores. And the other thing Ncmec can really do well is if we put out, a state puts out an Amber Alert and say you know that the child is on I-10 and maybe going to Arizona, they target those certain areas and they flood it with people who get the alerts on their phones. So it's very geographical targeting of where that kid is probably going to wind up. So that helps. It helps. Almost said capture. Almost helps rescue a lot of kids where you can do the targeting. So far, as of last year, about 1,100 kids have been rescued off of Amber Alerts. And most of those have been through the targeting. Here is the map of all our different Team Adam that we have. You see one little star there in Louisiana. I think we just added somebody in Mississippi. But these are the different things that we'll do. We'll go out to a site, and we have somebody in Alaska. I went through the training with her. She's got her hands full up in Alaska. But we have on site where we'll go out, we can do critical cases. We just had a couple cases not long ago where at one point it used to just be kids that Ncmec would come out for, but if it's a missing person under 21 years old, Ncmec will help law enforcement. We were just down in this area, I don't remember, a month or two ago, helping out a local agency on a missing child. So if they call, we'll come down, and I'm going to go over a lot of the different services that we provide. We have anthropologists that volunteer their time. We have dental, I don't remember the long medical term, but dentists that'll come out and do the comparison if they do find skeletal remains. We have landfill experts. There's a guy out of Austin that works specifically for Ncmec that if he knows where somebody was put and they go to a landfill, he's got some kind of crazy algorithm that'll tell the law enforcement exactly where they're going to find that person. And he's, it's unbelievable what he can do off of that algorithm. But law enforcement call him all the time because landfill searches aren't just, run a dog over and hope you hit it. It doesn't work like that. But we also have anthropologists on staff. We have, I think she's out of North Carolina. She's a doctor there that runs cadaver dogs. And she's able to, because she works in that department, she trains her dogs specifically with cadavers instead of just the chemical smells. So she's called out and she does phenomenal work, and that's all free for law enforcement to come out and help. These are the different services that we also provide. DNA testing, forensic genealogy, if a department needs it. We have pollen experts that if they find somebody, a body, and they can go through and they'll bring the pollen expert out there to examine, and they've been phenomenal with finding out where that person came from. It's unbelievable what they can do. Document examination, a lot of that's for the U.S. Secret Service, are really, really good at document examination, and they have the Secret Service people that are assigned to Ncmec that'll help out on that. We also have a missing child unit, and this is all the different, it helps a lot with the family trees because you can kind of picture where the kid's going to go, or if it's somebody that they know took them. So it helps put all that together. It takes a ton of the legwork off of the law enforcement, where we can go through and you know, we have a whole team there that can do this, but it would take me as a police officer a month and a half to do. They can do it in a phenomenal amount of time. These are the different companies that we work with. They all work with us on providing information. LexisNexis, Facebook, all of the big tech people actually work with Ncmec fairly well. We started an initiative last year that really works with native Indian tribes. And after I left state police, I was very fortunate. I was appointed chief of police of a local Indian tribe here, and I got to learn a lot about the Native American community and the needs that they really need there, and especially like places Alaska out west and North Dakota and the Badlands and all that. So Ncmec has really taken an interest and a goal of helping out the tribes quite a bit. I'll get through this a little bit. One thing that I found out too, and I really am not exactly sure why, but it is what it is. Native American children are 12 times likely to be victimized than any other group. What we're seeing a lot of times, and when I was a young police officer, I was guilty of it too. You'd sit there and you'd see runaway kids, and you have to deal with them, and you respond to calls, and you're back and forth, the same kid, the same thing. And what we're learning now, we were wrong. We were just so wrong in dealing with kids like that. And then one thing that I've also learned over the years, there really aren't bad kids. There's kids making really bad choices. I was very fortunate with state police. They sent me to become a forensic child interviewer. And I got to interview a little over 300 kids that had either been trafficked or sex abuse. And there was a lot of things they had in common. A lot of it was they didn't have structure. A lot of it was they were seized upon, and I'll go over some grooming techniques that they use. But a lot of them had the same, they all kind of fell in the same category, that somebody was there to fill a gap that somebody else really should have. So far, we've received, well, in year 2000, about 19,000 reports of child porn, child sexual abuse material. Whenever you see an arrest and you see somebody was arrested and they get charged with, I don't know, with 50, 75, 100 counts of child porn, that's a low number that you would find on a child pornographer's computer. That's enough. Like when we would go there, we'd get a warrant, we'd look at the computer, and I would hook up to the computer and I'd start going through it. I would just pick out enough to go book them. You know, it's enough to hold them there, and you get the bond pretty high because of the number. It was usually 50 to 100. Most of the cases we had, they all had numbers. If it was less than 500, I was shocked. The most that I had on one single computer was 300,000, and I quit counting. What we have to do a lot of is we have to change how we deal with the child victims. At one time, it used to be the logic whenever we would catch a child that was involved in prostitution, we would just, let's book them and charge them and get them into the system. And, that was horribly wrong. So what we do now is we treat them as the victim, which they are. So there's a whole different mindset that we have. There's places that are able to help them. And that's another thing that Ncmec is able to do also, is we provide counseling services. They contract out with counselors throughout the country that if anything, they can go through Ncmec to get the proper counseling. And then there's counselors that have dealt with kids that have gone through this specifically, this specific crime. So what are some of the things that we have to do? We have to reduce child exploitation. A lot of what we did too, I don't remember if did y'all ever see that show, To Catch a Predator? That's a lot of what we did also. And whenever we did that, one of my jobs was to go on and you pretend to be somebody young. A lot of times you would pretend to be we wouldn't want to make them too old. So it's like my profiles were 12, 13, 14-year-old girl. Did some cases, a lot of cases on that. And it was amazing. One of the profiles, I'm like, well, let's see how far we can push it. And one of the profiles that we just could not keep predators away from was a 7-year-old boy, where I would go online and pretend to be a 7-year-old boy. And it was amazing the amount of predators that would seize on someone that age. But we were able, it gave them away, because I love doing those cases whenever you would get kids like that, because we were actually catching them while they were hunting, is what we called it. They were hunting kids. And whenever we would do these cases, it's amazing the numbers of people that would seize an opportunity to take advantage of a child like that. Another profile that we would set up, and they were kind of hard to do, but they were pretty successful, was we would go online and portray a parent trading their children with other parents trading their children. And actually, most of the human trafficking cases that we worked were, I use the parents loosely, but those children's parents trading them with other parents for sex. The other thing that we need to get away from, we used to call it child pornography, but that really doesn't emphasize what it is. What it is, it's child sexual abuse that's captured on video. And I keep saying child pornography, forgive me, it's a hard habit to break, but that's one of the things that we really target. This is where we get most of our complaints from on the child sexual abuse part. In 2021, we got almost 30 million images that came through Ncmec that different providers gave us. The numbers are just, it's almost unbelievable. So far, you see the numbers here. And you look at the kids that are identified, we hadn't even scratched the surface of the numbers that are out there. You know, and it was weird whenever we would go through and we would get these people's computers. They were all put in, like they had names of the series, different boys and girls' names. And there was very, very common names, and as the kids got older, they would eventually get one, and honestly, it sounds, I know I'm ruining a lot of people's days here, but once they got to about 12 years old, they were kind of too old for it, you know, and they would start at 3, 4 years old, and they would go up to they're about 12, and they were starting to get a little old of it because it really wasn't anything, like they couldn't find regular 18-year-olds that looked 12. So once they got to a certain age, you know what I mean, they kind of, you wouldn't see them anymore. But most of them started at a very young age, and it took a long time for law enforcement to catch up where we could catch them. One of the ones that was out there, she was started at 4 years old, and they rescued her at 10 or 11, something like that, and it wound up being her dad that was making the movies with her. And matter of fact, one of the worst cases we worked was out of New Iberia, and it showed you how bad it was. She was 8 months old, her dad was making movies with her, and another pedophile turned him in because he said that's too much. So, I mean, it's, you know, when you get into this world, it's horrible. One of the things that you'll notice up here, kids when they're victimized, over 70% of the time know who the victim, know who the perpetrator is. You as a parent are likely going to know who the perpetrator is. It's only about, y'all remember the years and years ago, the girl from Utah, Elizabeth Small.
Yeah.
That was, it made national news, and thank God it did, because it brought a highlight to it. But, you know, I'm not saying this to downplay it, but that's only about 0.5% of actual child victimization is from stranger danger. Most of the time, the child is going to know the person, and most of the time, the child is going to be groomed by the person. We're going to go into a little bit of this. The 70% is like you've got a percentage of people that they know them online, but 70%, almost 70% of children are victimized by somebody that has direct access to that child. This is another plan that we have there at Ncmec. It's a recovery plan. So once the kid is rescued, we'll send out the family members. We have teams that work there. They'll refer them to counselors. They'll refer them to the help that they need. They'll help them walk through the process of going from victim to survivor. And a couple times I've been corrected on that, but never by a child that went through it. Because sometimes I'd say, it would come up in a conversation with me and the child, I'd use the term victim, and I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor of it. But then sometimes I've had people that weren't ever victimized told me that's the wrong thing, so I'll go with what they teach them, or what the kids told me. It's very important to talk to kids. I'm gonna get a little bit off track right here, if y'all don't mind. It's very important to talk to kids. I'm a dad, I'm married now. When I first got into this, I had 3 young, my daughters were really young. They're like 6 years old, 7, 8, somewhere up in there. And I got into this, and especially after I started interviewing other kids, I started realizing they're gonna learn it from somewhere. It better be from me, or it better be from a trusted adult. So I'm gonna tell you a little something. It was weird. I decided I'm going to tell my kids, I'm going to have that talk with them. My oldest was 7 maybe. My youngest was 5-ish, 6, somewhere in there. But I said, by God, I'm doing it. I took what I learned from here. I went and I read what I could. I got books that I thought were age appropriate. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. So I brought them in one at a time. I brought in my oldest one. I said, all right, we're going to talk, and we're going to clear the air. Because one of the things as a forensic interviewer that drives you batty is when a kid doesn't know the right body terms. You have to teach your kids right body terms. So I said, we're going to go through this. And I started talking to her, and I was turning red. She was turning red. I was sweating like I was in a sauna. But I'm like, by God, we're getting through this. And we did, got through it, got to my middle one, same thing. I'm redder than that jacket. She's turning red, but we got through it. And then I got to my youngest one. Now, all 3 of my kids are gym rats. They were all athletes. They were all hunting and fishing with me, so eating at fine dining is not our thing, so we're a little bit rough. But I got to my baby. Y'all don't mind if I get a little PG, do you? So I got to my youngest, and I said, all right, now I'm telling you, I was spent. I had had enough of talking about this with my daughters, but I was going to do it. And I got to my youngest one, and I said, all right, we're going to talk, and we're going to talk about the difference between boys and girls. And she said, Daddy, I already know that. And let me tell you something, when you're at this crossroads, don't go with plan B like I did. I should have gone with plan A, and I should have just, this is what I got, this is what we're going to do. So my 6-year-old, 5-6-year-old now, she's been in gymnastics, she's been in locker rooms, she's got 2 older sisters. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I said, well, tell me what you know. And the quote out of my little 5-year-old mouth was, Dad, boys got nuts, girls don't. And I looked, and I said, you know what, I think you got it, and we're done. and we ended it. But you have to talk, because I promise you, if you don't, somebody will. And while I'm on that, I'm going to go a little bit farther on that. There's a couple things that are very, very key. A lot of times, we don't plan on it, but you are that person that a child will come talk to for whatever reason. You could be their teacher, you could be the parent, you could be whatever, Sunday school teacher. If you're that person, you don't have to know how to reinvent the wheel. You got to know one thing. Don't ask a why question. Don't ask them why you didn't come forward. Don't ask them why did you wear that. Don't ask why did you go over there. Don't ask a single why question. All you got to remember, you're safe now and you're loved. That's all you got to remember. Don't ask why. The other thing, while I'm on this, because I'm going to get back on the rails here in a minute, we have to teach them to respect their own privacy. A little picking on myself, I learned as a dad with 3 girls, and I'm happily married now, been a long time, but I knock on the door and I ask to come in to their room, even when they were young. It's not, and look, that was me and my wife's home, that was our roof, that was our rules, but it was their privacy. And I wanted them to be able to tell me, stop, hold on a minute before I went in. It's that important. It's very important when the kids know 70% of their violators to be able to tell someone they know and trust, wait a minute, it's still my house, still my rules, but it's their privacy. That's extremely important. That even extends to, I'm a grandparent now. Even when my grandkids are over and they're getting ready to leave, I don't tell them, you have to come give me a hug. I don't. It's their privacy. Now, I like it when they do. And if I go to hug them and they hug me back, fine. If they don't, little fist bump me on their way. We cannot teach affection on demand. It's that important. I learned a hard lesson on that with my oldest about knocking on the door and you got to respect their privacy. I also had a thing where it's me and my wife's rules. Teenager doing whatever teenagers do. I don't remember what started, but she slammed the door. I'm like, oh, no, that ain't going to happen. So I did what my parents did, went out, took the door off the hinges, put it in the garage. And I'm thinking, now my daughter doesn't have a door. But I can't back down. So for about a month, she had a curtain over her door. But we have to respect their privacy. They have to know, they can tell an adult it's too much. And it starts right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the big, am I running out of time? Oh, okay, all right. So what are the things we have to do? We have to look for the access that kids have. A lot of the access that kids get, there's no great answers towards where they can go, where they can't go. If they're younger, I'm going to show you, Ncmec has some cartoons and some online things that younger kids can go to. And they're perfectly safe. They're a little bit educational, but they're kind of entertaining. My grandkids go to it and they'll watch them, and no problem. You don't have to sit there and watch them all the time. What you do have to do is let kids know what to be careful of, because they're going to go online. You know, when we first started doing this and Facebook came out, every kid was on Facebook, and they had the parents' Facebook and they had the kids' Facebook, and they all had 2 or 3 Facebooks, and that's just the way it is. So what we have to do, we have to teach them to watch out and what to be careful of. The first of that is the prevention. Kids are bombarded. Thank God we didn't grow up in what the kids have to grow up with now. Kids are bombarded online and with pressures and things like that. And for a long time, as a police officer, I even had to tell them, when it's on the internet, what? It's on the internet. There's nothing you can do. Bad choice. Ncmec has developed a program now. It's called Take It Down. The kids can go on, anybody can go on there, but the kids can go on there, open up the Ncmec website, and follow the directions. They can drag the video or the picture onto Take It Down, The video is completely erased. It's assigned a hash value, and it's sent to all the different internet service providers that coordinate with us, and it's removed. So the kids have a choice. We're seeing a lot of that where if these boys are getting coerced online about, they think it's a little girl they're talking to and it's not, and they're, give me $200, they can do the same thing. They can drag it on there, they can put it on take it down, it's gone. It is converted to a hash and it's gone. So that's one of the things that we can do. The other thing is that we can do, this is, if they're up through about 5th grade, you can go to the Kid Smart, and you can watch it first, make sure it's good for you and your kids, let them go through it, and it'll go through all the different internet safety, all the different things for parents, communities, schools, things like that, and it'll really, really help. The other thing is, too, I'm just touching on what Ncmec can do, and I would really encourage that when you get about 30, 45 minutes, just go to the website and just start looking through it. Because I went up, when I got hired a year and a half ago at Ncmec, I went up there for a week, and I walked out of there and I'm like, I probably know half of what they do. So I really encourage you to go to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children and just start scrolling through. And it's got a ton of educational things that that'll help you out with the kids. There's some things that you can really look for, and with kids, look for a change in behavior, look for change in friends, and look for isolation, because those are usually some pretty good indicators that something's going a little bit off the rails there. So what you're going to want to do is you really want to focus on that and give them these different, if it is take it down, maybe talk to their friends, sit down, give them some choices, like, probably not, well, I'm going to back up a little bit. I used to go through and I would say, if you think your kid or your grandkid will tell you absolutely everything, raise your hand. Every now and then somebody would. I'll say, okay, if you think your kid's going to tell you that they got abused, come on up here and tell a group of strangers what you did on your honeymoon night. Tell me how comfortable you are, because that's what we ask kids to do. It got quiet just like this, okay? Except I was at a plant one time and I made the mistake of doing that, and they had a couple people raise their hands, and I said, somebody come on up here. I said, that's the same thing we ask victims to do. I'm a complete stranger to these boys and girls. I go in and I interview them. I said, tell me about it. If you think your kid's going to do it, you're wrong. I said, if you're so confident, come up here and tell the group. And it got dead quiet, just like in here. And one lady raised her hand. She said, I said, tell us about your honeymoon. And it got quiet. A lady raised her hand. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I'll go first. It didn't take long. And I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. That's what we need as a comedian in here. But generally speaking, they're not they won't. I mean, who's comfortable with that? Everybody just got really, really uncomfortable, and there was a reason for that. Kids aren't going to come forward, because we have to remember, when kids get violated, a groomer is the best at what they do. Just think about when we were young and we went and we bought a car, and we walked out of there thinking, man, this is pretty cool. And a couple of days later, we thought, man, I just paid $30,000 for a $10,000 car. Not that but just think about how we felt about that. We kind of just got taken advantage of. Or if you've dealt with someone older who got scammed, it happens. These kids are no different. They got scammed. And not only did they get scammed, they got scammed by someone that pushed their buttons like nobody else can. These predators know more about those kids that they target than most anybody else. They target them for a reason. They see their vulnerabilities. They go after their weaknesses. They go after, oh, well, you're having problems with your parents. Your parents won't let you do this. Your parents won't let you do that. Your friend, they know when their friends break up with them. They see all of this because kids put it all over the place. So what we really do when we go talk to kids, we tell them, just keep this in the back of your mind. Always be on guard when somebody wants you to break a rule online. Because if they learn that you are not allowed to be online or do this or do that after 10 o'clock, what is a predator going to get you to do? Something at 10:01. Because the minute you break that first rule, they own you. Because they know you're not going to come forward because they think they're going to get in trouble. So that's some things that, little simple things like that we really have to look out for. The other thing is to these predators. We track, and it shows if there's young boys, if they haven't been victimized online, they know somebody that has. So if you go through here, it'll kind of give you an idea of what the kid's going through and maybe how to deal with them. Because it's what, one in four kids has had some kind of sextortion go on. Most of them are under 13 years old. You know, a lot of people will ask what the age group was of the videos that we recovered. Normally, once they got teenage, and there was a sex abuse with the teenage, then usually the general detectives would work that. But we worked everything. I remember one video was a violation of a baby in a neonatal unit, and all the way up through any age from there. So there's no limit on what these people will do. These are some different resources that we have. They have activity guides online, peer education if you're a teacher. There's a lot of different services on there, a lot of different information that you can pass on. Tip sheets, if you want a presentation done, I know it kind of lowers the mood of the music in the room every now and then, but if you go to our outreach part of Ncmec, you can ask for a presentation. In there, if you want, I'm part of Team Adam, and we have an outreach group, but if you want, if it's in Louisiana, if you want me to, or Mississippi, East Texas, if you have someone in mind that you want, you can request that particular person and then go through. This is another thing that's really good. If you go on there, and I think I touched a little bit on it, but the work that Ncmec does with kids with autism is phenomenal. So if you have to work with kids with autism or special needs kids, please go in there and download and see what they have to offer. Everything is free. Include the survivors for the families. I think I touched on that a little bit, where if a family goes through a tragedy like this, they can reach out to Ncmec. If a family has a missing child, they should call the police first, but then they can also call Ncmec, and Ncmec will get the ball rolling, and they'll make liaisons with that law enforcement agency. So a lot of times, police, they're kind of, and I was 37 years, we kind of do our thing, and it's not on the forefront to call Ncmec, but as a family member, or if you have a missing kid or long-term missing, Ncmec will help as long as they got to be under 21. Ncmec will certainly provide the service. Any of these services are free. The prices. I'm going to go through and make sure I got everything. And I think, does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Are children still abducted, like riding their bike in the neighborhood or at a ball game or country fair or something?
You know, a fair amount. I saw not long ago, I don't remember where I saw it because I don't have social media and I don't watch the news, but I saw somewhere a young is either an older teen or a young adult was abducted from an NBA game. A predator just went up and talked her into the car. And I don't remember where I saw that, but I want to say it was in the last couple of days. So absolutely, yeah. I mean, predators are going to do predator stuff. I mean, that's just what they do. And wherever there's a vulnerability, they're going to seize it. That's what they do.
You know, when we grew up, you could take your bike and go walk all day and come home and suffer. You probably can't do that.
No, not really. No, it's a different world. And you know, it used to be, whenever we first started looking at all this, they had that term, good touch, bad touch, which we all kind of grew up, we all kind of learned. But I'm going to tell you, predators learn to defeat that, because what they did is they learned to touch kids where it doesn't hurt them. So that's why it's important to, when I go back to the privacy part about giving them control, we used to use the term, when I was interviewing these children, I would use the term, is it a place a bikini would go? You know, did they touch there? Because a lot of times the predator, there's a whole book, it's written by the Mule, it used to be online, but it's not anymore, about how to target certain, it was written by a predator for predators, and it was how to target families and children, and a lot of the times the predators target the families as much as they do the children, because they know if they can get into a divided family, they just use that to their benefit. Did that answer your? Okay. I hate to put a damper on everybody's. Yes, ma'am.
I think a lot of the child abductions also, not just one individual pervert online. Do you know anything about the Satanism connection?
No, I can't say that. We came across most of the predators that we've dealt with. I would say, well, unequivocally, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus, and they didn't. I'm trying to think back if we had any specific ones that were for that, and I can't pick one out, but we had most of the cases that we worked were either the online, the child pornography, or if it was the human trafficking, it was typically the parents trading for children that same age with other parents, and they would do a swapping for the weekend and stuff like that. But you know, there was some word out there that was for drugs. A lot of the times, the trafficking victims we got, they weren't trading them for drugs. They might have been drug users, but they're really trading to pay the bills and to get other kids in their circle. I hate to end on that note.
Howard, thank you so much for coming in, for giving us a great speech tonight. You know, it does bring the tempo down a little bit, but you need that every so often, because that's the slap in the face that a lot of people need to realize what's going on. Because when you told me that the other day, that parents were trading their kids, you know, with each other for pleasure. I mean, I had never heard of that before. It basically was like a gut punch, you know. I mean, even worse than that. But to hear that, but you know, you need that eye-opening information to be able to realize that these are the things that we aren't privy to, because we're too busy being distracted by the narratives and the ideologies and the news cycle things that are going on. That I keep telling everybody, you know, that ignore the narrative, stop repeating the same stories. I think I hear that Joe Biden has dementia one more time. I'm like, well, then no, you really need to know about how children are being swapped between families for pleasure, and they don't see anything wrong with it. And I can't thank you enough for all your information today. I really appreciate you.